Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. We begin in Asia. Asian stocks have... Good morning to you. Asian stocks have maintained their bounce back from yesterday. So they remain in positive territory, and they were boosted by comments from the deputy governor of the Bank of Japan, Shinichi Uchida. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, so hopefully gallery can sort that out. Here's a comment from Mr. Shinichi Uchida saying that the bank needs to maintain monetary easing with the sufficient policy interest rates for the time being, with developments in financial and capital markets at home and abroad being extremely volatile. So, you know, Dr. Abati has talked a lot about the carry trade and how that was upended by the rate hike, 25 basis point rate hike from the Bank of Japan last week. You saw what that led to. So these comments from Mr. Uchida now are set to ease some worries that, okay, maybe we won't see another rate hike, which was rumored to happen at the next Bank of Japan meeting. So if you take a look at Asian markets this morning, from the Nikkei 225 that had that blockbuster rally yesterday, to the Hang Seng in Hong Kong, the all-share ASX 200 in Australia, the Shanghai Composite Index in China, the Kospi in Korea, you see positive sentiments across the board for today. We go to China, stay in Asia, and China's numbers for trade numbers, percentage growth rather, for July, coming in slightly below estimates, but still not bad. You can see there that with respect to how much it was done in exports, growing in July 7% year on year, or you can see the estimates there were for 9.7% growth for exports in China. Imports were up by 7.2%, higher than the expectations of 3.5. You can see the imports from the US growing by 24%, exports growing by 8%, similar exports for Europe, the EU, imports growing by 7%, and in the ASEAN region, that's the largest region which China trades with. Categories, drilling down a little bit further. Crude imports climbing by 6%, 8% in July, 6% for natural gas. Look at vehicles, 553,000 vehicles in July, in 1 month. 26% year-on-year growth. Home appliances, 17% export growth. Rare earths and growing as well. So China is still pretty healthy, although, as we know, there are still a number of challenges that the economy is facing from the property sector and so on. We move to Nigeria. The central bank putting out a letter yesterday saying that they have approved the merger. It's being called a merger, but some are saying it's a takeover between Providus Bank and Unity Bank here in Nigeria. They've injected about 700 billion naira into this merger to support Unity Bank's obligations. Some of those obligations will be backed out of that 700 billion that's been put in there. It's in provision of, what is the section? Section 42, I think subsection 2 of the 2007 CBN Act. The central bank also in their letter emphasizing that Nigeria's financial sector is healthy and that, you know, following what happened with the revocation of the license of Heritage Bank, that everyone else is healthy. Now remember, Unity Bank, I think their shares were suspended back in March or so because they hadn't put forward or released their trading of their shares on the NGX, was suspended for not providing their 2023 financial statement. So the bank did need a bit of assistance. Going forward, the central bank again is saying that the bank's healthy. Remember, the recapitalization exercise going on, you had 4 options. Either you met the new thresholds, or you downgraded your license, or you merged with another bank, or you just got out the game entirely. So that's what, this is all part of that. We go to private jets. We've been talking, of course, about whether banks, again, this is on the back of Femi Otedola's comments around the windfall tax. We are waiting for comments from the Bank Directors Association of Nigeria on Monday the 12th, following their meeting. But of course, the discussion around whether these jets should be owned or leased. We know about the issues with traveling around Africa, right? Here is Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu emphasizing that particular point.
The issue came up with the lifestyle of these bank CEOs. Yeah. Now, I need to comment on that because it raised the issue of private jets or no private jets. Yeah. Now, let me put it this way. I was going for a meeting, going for a meeting in Guinea. It took me maybe 3 hours flight from here continuously.
Yeah.
But it took me 2 days to get there.
My goodness, that's Guinea within Africa.
Guinea, yeah, two days to get there.
Yeah.
Okay? I went to Zambia one time. It took me the same thing 2 days to get there. So you can imagine a CEO that is in 21 African countries.
With branches everywhere.
With branches everywhere. Will he be at the airport waiting for that?
Yeah. All right, and then Adefemi did bring up, by the way, speaking of private jets, how did Adefemi get from Lagos yesterday to London so quickly? All right, so Adefemi on the cover of the New Telegraph was talking about the refineries, right? Here is former President Olusegun Obasanjo. From that Financial Times documentary we talked about on the oil sector, here he is talking about how he offered to sell the refineries to Shell and they refused to buy them.
For refineries, but despite billions of dollars in investment over the years, they've just never been able to refine petroleum products.
They've broken down, they've run out of spare parts. At best, they've run massively under capacity.
And when I was president, I invited Shell and I said, look, come and take equity participation and run our refineries for us. They refused. He said, our refineries have not been well maintained. We have brought amateurs rather than bring professionals. He said there's too much corruption with the way our refinery is run and maintained, and they didn't want to get involved in such a mess.
And that is our business updates for this Hump of the Week Wednesday. Back to you in the studio.
So a couple of things, Rotus. Truth has to be said. See, I get what Femi Otedola is saying, and I also get what Mr. Chikambono is saying, because I watched the show yesterday. Most of the case with some of these people that own the private jets and the banks is not the case. Rotus, if you want to evaluate what is going on, I talked about girlfriends and, concubines in private jets. Just let's have an audit of their manifests. Most of these top CEOs and banks, let's have an audit of a manifest of the people that flew in these private jets vis-a-vis their leisure and their business trips. Let's have an audit of the manifest. You see what I'm saying? I'm not just, Femi Otedola is not just talking for the sake of talking. And I'm happy Chikambono also did say yesterday that this man is a top businessman. But you hear what he said about Femi and private jets. You could have leased one if it's really emergent. I know interconnectivity is difficult in Africa. Secondly, the point I'd like to make is, what do you expect Shell to do? Those refineries were already moribund. You thought Shell was going to take something like scrap and it was not going to be viable for them to be able to reproduce and all of that. No, because these same refineries that you were about to call Shell to come and come, you forget that it was Shell Daisy that built it in 1965 in Port Harcourt before the government took it over. It was Shell that built it in 1965, Shell Daisy. So they knew the refineries were scrap. And that's why, what is it called? That's why when you also look at it, you would see that Olusegun Obasanjo now called in local investors to invest. The likes of Dangote wanted to get that refinery. And I think also even Femi Otedola. In fact, they got it and another government reversed the decision. If Dangote had taken over Port Harcourt refinery all this while, he would have turned it around and used it. It was because they reversed the decision, he had to go and start his own Dangote refinery. And today, Rotus, I want to commend you on time. Somebody just dropped in my ear that you were absolutely fantastic and fantabulous on time. Kudos to you this morning.
All right. Okay, Rotus, I'll just continue. Yeah, I'm sure you suck that in. But let me just talk about what former President Olusegun Obasanjo had said. I think he echoed what a number of people, what we've talked about a number of times on this table, including yourself, on giving us the global business report. Number one is that there's a lot of corruption. Hence, so the definition of what transpired with Shell was just an example, a clear example of how we've lost perhaps potential investment or partnership at best with foreigners as a result of the perception of the oil industry, which is said to be corrupt. And he also talked about, again, going back to the reason why there are saboteurs for the Dangote refinery, for instance, as long as anyone who would want to come up in that space to refine locally. The fact that there are interests that would be affected, and those who have interest will do as much as possible to ensure that it doesn't see the light of day. This has been happening since the Obasanjo administration. 25 years or 24 years, 25 years down the line, we're still seeing the same challenges rear its head with regards to the oil sector. And so he asked a very important question. Are we ever going to see an end to this? Are we ever going to see sanity or perhaps some form of business sense in the oil sector as long as we have these interests being serviced and these people who benefit from the import of oil from abroad, would they ever want to see anything locally work? They also put a sound of warning, again, reiterating what we talked about, that what is happening with the Dangote situation is very critical because it shows or demonstrates to the world how ready Nigeria is, not just for international investment or foreign investment, but even local investment. How many investors seeing the way that millions of dollars of investment can just in one day or by one statement by a regulatory agency just begin to cast aspersions. So those are critical things that we need to look at. Like I mentioned, he's just said a number of things that we've talked about, but these are things that haven't yet been addressed. And if they continue to persist, I don't know what would happen with regards to NNPCL, the oil sector, and even investment generally for Nigeria.
Okay, very quickly, let's talk about markets. On Monday, we were talking about a market route from Japan, from Southeast Asia to the US to Europe. The magnificent 7 big tech companies in the United States on Monday alone lost $1 trillion. And that was how serious the matter was. Treasury yield went down. The markets all went down. But by midday yesterday, there has been a rebound. As of this morning, in France CAC 40 has gone up by about 100%. In the UK, the FTSE has also gone up. In Germany, the DAX has also gone up. In Japan, the TOPIX, which is the Japanese index, has also gone up. So the market will seem to have recovered. The treasury yield has also rebounded. Nvidia and Meta, they've increased by 3.8% to 3.9% respectively. Market cap or stocks on Wall Street have gone up. However, the Financial Times is telling us that, look, well, this has happened, but the investors should not think that this is the end of it. Peter Oppenheimer, the Global Equity Funds Director of Goldman Sachs, says what we're witnessing is market correction, and that this market correction is inevitable, and that, look, this elevator movement will still continue. Now, as for the Central Bank of Nigeria and Providus and Unity Bank, the phrase that the Central Bank of Nigeria used is financial accommodation. And in that statement that was issued by the CBN, they didn't put a figure to it. But I see some newspapers are saying, Unity Bank asked for 700 billion. What is strange to me is why the difference. Recently, the license of Heritage Bank was withdrawn. Why is Unity Bank being favored, whereas Heritage Bank was not so favored? In the other stories that I have seen, Elon Musk is suing advertisers. He said when he took over Twitter, which became X, they decided to suspend advertisement, and that is a violation of antitrust rules. So he's taking them to court. Well, I don't know whether he will succeed. I don't know whether it is possible, even in the American jurisdiction, to force advertisers to patronize any platform. These are some of the things that are of interest to me, more or less. But thank you very much.